It's caught in the crossfire. It's caught in the.
What's up, guys? Lance Obscure Movie Guy coming to you once again with another fun-filled, fact-filled video that you probably won't care about, but we're going to do it anyways, trying to change the world one post at a time. And today, they did it, so we're going to have to talk about it. They dropped the trailer for 2024's The Crow, and there is a lot to unpack with this trailer.
When someone dies, a crow carries their soul to the land of the dead. But sometimes something so bad happens that the soul cannot rest. Until you put the wrong things right.
So ever since they dropped the first image of Bill Skarsgård as Eric Draven from The Crow, there's been a lot of controversy, I guess, surrounding the new image of the character. People either love it or hate it. And from most of the interactions that I've had through my Facebook page, a lot of people that follow me don't seem to like it. And I kind of don't blame them. However, some of the other groups and pages that I do follow, there does seem to be a lot of like and love for the look of the new character. A little bit more modernized, a little bit different telling of the story. But there's a lot to unpack with 2024's Crow. Not just with the look. However, that being said, we should state that The Crow is based off of a graphic novel comic book series, and this is just one iteration of Eric Draven from said comic book series. Much like most comic books, this one works off of either a multiverse or an anthology type telling, so there is different versions of Eric Draven that could be from the comics, and we are getting a different one than we are accustomed to with 1994's version starring Brandon Lee. That being said, it's hard to ignore the fact that Bill Skarsgård version, the 2024 version, does seem very reminiscent of Jared Leto's Joker.
They're the same picture.
One could even argue that he kind of looks like the Florida Joker, aka the GTA 6 Joker. All kind of have the same image.
They're the same picture.
So regardless of how you feel about the look, the trailer itself, which dropped, runs about 3 minutes long and pretty much shows you nothing new in regards to the storyline. Eric Draven, Shelley, get murdered. He comes back from the dead to seek vengeance on the ones that killed him. It's a tale as old as time. I will say that it looks like through the course of the trailer that they are going to try and focus a little bit more on the supernatural side of the storyline versus the actual act of vengeance itself. So this movie will probably run a little bit longer than the original, have a little bit more plot details as far as the actual supernatural portion of the story goes, and we'll still watch Bill Skarsgård's Eric Draven seek the revenge that he so desperately wants for the people that killed Shelley. Now, me personally, I'm just not feeling it. I don't feel like the trailer or the storyline has really captured the true essence of The Crow and what it was intended for when it was originally written. But that's just my own personal piece there. And I may be biased because I was a Brandon Lee fan. I was also a fan of Bruce Lee. And I was a fan of the original film. Still am. But it's just not vibing very well for me right now. But it may be a little presumptuous to come to that conclusion right now. I will say this. I do think the movie is going to be a commercial success. I do think it's going to do well as far as box office numbers. You have a whole generation that's been curious about a proper Crow sequel or remake for a long time. In '94, we got this great movie, and it was followed up by very, very lackluster franchise movies that just didn't capture the true essence of the original film. So I do feel like that this 2024 version is going to be a commercial success because you have a whole generation that's interested in seeing if it can recapture the magic from the first one, and you have a new generation that wants to see if it's going to be any better because they probably saw the first one and was like, I don't understand what the big deal is about this movie. Plus, you got a lot of Bill Skarsgård fans out there, Pennywise, John Wick. They're going to go end up seeing it. So there's that. I do feel like it's going to be a commercial success. And they also do have a very solid cast. Bill Skarsgård is a very good actor. Not to mention you have Danny Houston playing the bad guy. Danny Houston plays bad guys exquisitely. He is very good at it. I hope this guy's not an asshole in real life because he's so good at playing one in movies and TV shows. Think about everything you've seen this guy in. He's a dick. But he's going to be a good bad guy. That's a great cast. Not to mention Bill Skarsgård. FKA Twigs. I don't know fuck all about her. She's a singer apparently. Does nothing for me. Stupid name. I don't really care. I'm sure she'll do a fine job. Other than that, whatever. Special effects look halfway decent. And judging by the song that they picked for the trailer, I'm hoping that the soundtrack for this movie is as epic as it was for the original movie. But I don't think this version is just going to capture the essence and heart and soul of the original 1994 version of The Crow. Now, you guys might be asking yourself, what do I mean by capturing this heart and soul of this original movie? And for that, we actually got to go way back in the way back. You guys have to understand that the Crow movie was based off of the graphic novel comic book series The Crow, which was published originally in 1989. It was written by a guy named James O'Barr. James O'Barr enlisted into the United States Marines in 1978. He would go on to be an illustrator for service manuals for the United States Marines. So he's always been an artist. Prior to being shipped off from the Marines, he was engaged to a lovely lady named Beverly who was taken from him in a drunk driving accident where she was killed. And he carried that pain with him through his enlistment. When he got done his service in 1981, he started writing The Crow as a way to express his pain and find some sort of solace in what had happened to Beverly. This comes through in the comic book series and in the movie. Not only that, but he took some inspiration from real-life tragedies around the world. One particular one that he took notice of was a couple in Detroit in the early 80s that was killed. He had read about in a news article over a $20 engagement ring, which is why in the movie The Crow 1994, there was such an emphasis on Draven going back and getting that engagement ring from the pawn shop and then blowing it up in spectacular fashion. So O'Barr, who started The Crow, trying to find some sort of peace with what had happened to his fiance in real life, makes this comic book series, gets the elation of it being turned into a movie, and then again has to go through the tragedy of losing Brandon Lee, the star of the movie. Which he even said, and I'm paraphrasing a little bit because I don't remember the exact quote, but he did say in an interview that losing Brandon during the production of that film was like losing Beverly all over again, and he had to relive that whole horror all over again. Here was a movie that was supposed to be produced to try and finally bring some sort of solace to his real life tragedy, and here he has to deal with this tragedy almost all over again. And Brandon Lee was very well liked, loved, very good actor, very good martial artist, very respectable guy, and it was tragic what happened to him. And that's what I mean when you're not going to capture that with this remake. That's not saying that the remake won't have any heart and soul to it, but it's not going to capture the true essence of why The Crow even existed to begin with. I do think it'll be a halfway decent film. The action scenes look really good, but this is going to come off to me as more like another standard Hollywood production with very little heart and soul. It will have some. It will have its own little heart and soul to go with it, but I just don't think... And I think that's why 1994 resonates with so many people as far as the cult following that it has. A lot of the people that are a part of the cult following of it understand the comic book, understand the graphic novels, understand the pain that O'Barr had gone through. I think another thing that's really hindering this remake for me is that, gosh, since 2008, they've been trying to get a Crow reboot, remake, sequel off the ground since 2008. And it's gone through multiple writers, screenplays. There's been a ton of actors that have been associated with this. Not just Bill Skarsgård, but I mean, you're talking Jason Momoa at one point was supposed to be a part of it. Bradley Cooper, Mark Wahlberg, Tom Hiddleston, James McAvoy were all tapped at certain different times, depending on which production company was trying to do the remake. They were all tapped at certain points in time to play the character of Eric Draven. And just each and every time, whether it was a money issue, a time issue, a Harvey Weinstein issue, because that was one of the production companies that was going to try and do it, there was always an issue trying to get this off the ground. And for, almost 20 years now, we've been trying to get this remake off the ground. And I think just with that, constantly, they're going to do it, and then you get let down, and then they're going to do it, and then you get let down again, and then they're going to do it, and you go through this emotional roller coaster. It sounds silly because it's just a movie, but a lot of people go through this emotional roller coaster of something that they want to see made, and then it doesn't, and it's back again, and now it's not, and it's shit. And now that it's here, you're kind of you've had all this buildup over the years, and all this buildup and anticipation, and then you kind of get your first look, and you're fuck. You just kind of have this it's probably going to be a letdown on a personal standpoint. I still stand by my previous statement, though. This will be a commercial success. Whether or not it spawns any sequels, I don't know. I don't know if this is really a type of storyline and movie that you really could make a proper sequel. In the franchise, each and every time they did a new Crow movie, it was with a different character. It wasn't always Eric Draven. It was always somebody different, but it was always a similar storyline. You come back from the dead to seek vengeance on the ones that have done you wrong. And that's fine. I'm all about that. That's great. But can you make a whole franchise out of something like that? That's got to be kind of tough. Worked for John Wick, though, but he was never dead. He's still not. Apparently they're doing another one. And that is where the irony lies, is with John Wick. You want to play some Connect the Dots? Let's play some Connect the Dots. It's fitting. It's almost fitting that they landed on Bill Skarsgård, because as you're going to see, this is going to come almost full circle. Bill Skarsgård is Eric Draven. He was in John Wick 4, which was directed and co-directed by Chad, I don't even know how to say his last name, Stahelski, I believe is how you say it. Chad Stahelski, director and co-director from John Wick 1 to John Wick 4. He directed Keanu Reeves in those movies. Go back a little further before John Wick, you have The Matrix Reloaded. Chad Stahelski was the stunt double for Keanu Reeves through the Matrix series. Go back a little further. 1994, Chad Stahelski is the stunt double for Brandon Lee in The Crow. Stahelski was the stand-in for the reshoots after Brandon Lee was killed, and through some clever editing and reshoots, Stahelski finished out the film as The Crow and Eric Draven uncredited. Go back a little further than that. Stahelski becomes a Jeet Kune Do master from the Inosanto Academy, which was directed by Dan Inosanto. Now, if you're not familiar with Jeet Kune Do is the way of the intercepting fist, a martial arts style, non-style, that was derived from Bruce Lee. Dan Inosanto of the Inosanto Academy was Bruce Lee's star pupil and became a master and started teaching on his own. Dan Inosanto was in Game of Death with Bruce Lee. So it's amazing to see how you go from Bruce Lee to Dan Inosanto to Chad Stahelski to Brandon Lee to Keanu Reeves to Bill Skarsgård, and The Crow comes full circle. And it's that reasoning right there. Aside from the Skarsgård standpoint, that is why 1994's Crow has so much love and just humbling stuff behind it, because of all of those inner workings and how everything intertwined with each other. The other thing that I really think worked for 1994 is that the character of Eric Draven and Shelley, You know, The Crow 1994 is almost like it was like a modern day Gothica, like a modern day Gothic, you know, old school London, England type thing taking place in today's world. And it was a dark world. It's a dark city. The whole premise of the movie is very dark. And Eric Draven and Shelley were the light in that dark city. There's an innocence and a purity not only to the characters, but to the people that played the characters themselves, Brandon Lee. There's an innocence and a purity there that I don't think is going to be captured by Bill Skarsgård. Not from a lack of acting, but I just don't think it's going to be there for the story's sake. I don't think that their characters are going to have the same type of background as the original Shelley and Eric Draven. So, ironically, you know, after 1994, we got some ho-hum sequels. There was a TV show, The Crow, Stairway to Heaven. It actually came out in 1998. And that starred Mark Dacascos, another martial artist. Ironically, looked the part. Unfortunately, that show was on CW, whatever CW was at the time. It only lasted 13 episodes. So we almost had a proper remake. The problem is with the Stairway to Heaven, basically that whole first season was just a retelling of the original story with some added characters in between after the whole trauma of the original death of Eric Draven came about. But there you have it. That's my take on the Crow trailer. Like, subscribe, and comment to the channel. Leave a comment down below. Do you guys agree with what I said? Do you see where I'm connecting these dots? Do you see how it's kind of cool, but also kind of weird at the same time? So, but yeah, that's my take. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. I'll see you guys in the next video.